Hello and welcome to this SkillForge video. I'm going to teach you today how to use JavaScript regular expressions. When you first look at them, they can look a little confusing, they can look a little crazy, but when you dig into it and you look at them step by step and piece by piece, it's not too bad. Regular expressions are used to set up a pattern and then compare some input, some user input to that pattern to make sure if it matches or not. So there's patterns out there for phone numbers, which we're going to do today. There's patterns for social security numbers, zip codes, all kinds of different things. Anything that has an established pattern, you can create a regular expression for it to check to make sure that the user types in the correct information. All right, so to do this, I have this page set up here. Close out of this stuff. Okay, so we have this. So basically what I'm going to do is type in a phone number, hit check, and then see if that phone number will match the pattern or not. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to put in a variable here, and I'm going to select the button that I have on the page, which is this submit button, because I'm going to attach what's called of an event listener to it. So we'll be able to see, and when it gets clicked on, it will basically be able to do whatever we need to do there. So you'll see what I'm saying here in a second. So I'm going to create this variable called sub button. Get out there, document.getElementById by ID sub, because that's the ID that I gave this button here. So I'm going to store basically that button inside of sub button. Then I'm going to use that variable and add an event listener to it. And the event that we're listening for is click. And when it gets clicked, I'm going to run what's called an anonymous function, because it doesn't have a name. But basically what this is saying is we have this event listener attached to the button, and it's listening for click. So when I click on the button, it's going to run this function here that we're about to define. All right, so I'm going to set up another variable, and I'm going to do a similar thing, but this time I'm going to grab the input box here instead of the submit button. So I'm going to grab the element, so get element by ID phone, and I'm going to grab the value. In other words, whatever they typed inside of there. So whatever they typed inside of here will be stored inside of phone. Now remember, this doesn't happen until this button's been clicked. So it does give the user some time to put in a phone number, hit check. When they hit check, then it'll work. Now another quick thing we could do is throw an alert just to make sure that this event listener is firing off. So if I hit check, okay, it does. So we know that the event listener is working correctly, which is good. Okay. So now that we've stored the phone inside of there, I'm going to create my regular expression inside of this variable RE. Now, the quick way to create a regular expression is you can do it with these two slashes. And this is where the pattern lies. This is where you put in your pattern inside of these two slashes. Now, what I'm going to show you today is just skimming the surface of regular expressions. There's so many different things you can do with them, but this is one regular expression, and this isn't the only way that you would do a phone number. Phone numbers in other countries can get very complex, so this is how you could do a quick, easy one here in America, but really, the sky's the limit with this stuff. So I'll show you the symbols that I'm going to use here, explain them, but just know that there's a ton of other ones. So first thing is I create this little caret, and then I'm going to create a dollar sign. What this is saying is this regular expression has to begin with whatever follows this, and this one says it has to end with whatever follows this. So in a way, this is just a way with regular expressions that you can say it has to be exactly this long. So a phone number has to be 10 digits long, right? So that's the way that we can say this has to be exactly 10 digits. So everything inside of the caret here and everything inside the dollar sign, it has to be exactly that length. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is do another slash here. It has to go the other way, and we're going to do a parenthesis. And then after that, we're going to follow it with a question mark. Now what this says, now inside of regular expressions, if you use parentheses, it can be used to kind of group things together. Well, we don't want that. We don't want it to do the grouping functionality. We just want it to look for a parenthesis, because sometimes you'll put the area code in parentheses, right? So what we have to do is we do this thing called we're escaping the character, which means look for just a parenthesis. Don't use this parenthesis as like the programming functionality that it has, but just look for just a normal parenthesis character, and it may or may not be there. That's what the question mark means, is it may or may not start with a regular parenthesis. Okay, question mark means there can be 0 or 1 occurrence of it. So it can be there or not. Okay, but it can't be there more than twice, is what the question mark is saying there. So basically, when you're trying to make something optional, like they may or may not have the parenthesis there, you throw that question mark in there. Okay. The next thing that's going to come up is a /d, and then I'm going to throw this in curly brackets. Now what this says is there has to be 3 digits that follow that parenthesis. Okay, so /d means basically a number, 0 to 9. So after that parenthesis that may or may not be there, there's going to be 3 numbers. Okay, and we're not putting any question marks on this because those numbers have to be there. Okay, and then that may or may not end with a parenthesis. So we may have parenthesis, first 3 numbers, parenthesis, or we may not. Okay, that's what we've done so far. Okay, now sometimes in the phone numbers you'll have the first number and then a dash, and then the first 3 numbers and then a dash, and then the other 3 numbers and a dash. So we're going to do the same thing. There may or may not be a dash that follows it. So you're basically when you create these patterns, just saying this may or may not be there, this has to be there, and that's kind of what you're doing. I mean, obviously there's a lot more to it, but in this case where it's a phone number, it has to be 3 numbers, and 4 with maybe parentheses, maybe dashes thrown in the mix. This is how we're doing it here. Okay, so there may or may not be a dash. Okay, and then that is going to be followed by another set of 3 numbers. Okay, that's what that's saying. Remember, the /d means just any digit from 0 to 9, and then this means there's going to be 3 of them. Okay, and then that may or may not be followed with a dash. Okay, and then we're going to have it follow and end with 4 more numbers. Okay, that's it. Like I said, if you look at this, you're like, what the heck, right? This looks like something that may be encrypted. This may be something that just looks like a bunch of just junk that was typed out by a kindergartner, right? But if you go through it step by step and what all these different things mean, it's not too bad, right? So it has to begin with and it has to end with 10 digits, basically, with, well, 10 digits at least, with parentheses maybe, with dashes maybe. Okay, but this is what makes it have to be at least 10 digits long. If you don't have this caret and the $sign there, they could type 15 numbers and it would still accept it. Okay. All right, so it may or may not start with a parenthesis. Okay, it'll be followed with 3 digits, and then it may or may not be followed by another parenthesis, and then it may or may not have a dash. Okay, then it's followed with 3 more digits that have to be there, and then it may or may not be followed by another dash, and then it's followed by 4 more digits. Okay. All right, cool. So now now that we've set up the regular expression, we've gotten the input from the user. Now we got to test it to make sure that it's worked and that it passed the pattern. So I'm going to set up a variable called OK. And what you do is I'm going to use the test method or the test function to see if it passed, and that'll give me a true or false value. So I can say RE, right, which is the regular expression stored inside, so that regular expression stored inside that variable. So I'm going to say RE.test, and I'm going to apply that regular expression or that pattern to phone. Okay, so this is how you apply this regular expression to whatever string or whatever value they put in there. You take the irregular expression, you use the test function here, and then you supply or you put in the string or the input inside of these parentheses. Okay. Then I can just have a simple if statement. So if okay, I'm just going to use a quick alert. Okay, so if it returns true, in other words, it passed the test, it passed the pattern, it met the pattern specification, then we say phone number's good, right? And then we'll have an else, which means if it doesn't pass it, okay, phone number's bad. All right, so let's take a look. Let's run this and let's see if it works here. Gonna bring this over here. All right, so I'll just put in 10 numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And let's see if it works. If not, we will debug it and see what we got to do. Okay, phone number's good. Awesome. Okay, I can go 111, 222, 3333. That should work, hopefully. Yep, looks good. Now, if I get rid of one of those numbers, it's going to yell at me. Phone number's bad. So I'll put in another one there. So we know that the caret and the dollar sign are working because it has to be those 10 digits. Throwing a dash there. Okay, still accepted it. That's awesome. Throwing another dash here. Still accepted it. That's great. Get rid of those. Okay, still accepted it. Okay, so that's regular expressions in a nutshell. You're just setting up this pattern. You're using all these different symbols and such to set up different things. But they're really powerful because I mean this is a lot better than having to do like 20 lines of if statements. You know, they're like if the parenthesis is there, accept it, or if it's not, don't. I mean, just to do things like that could take a long time. But it's pretty slick that you can set up this one pattern here and be able to check a string on it. So in one line of code, you could do something that 20 lines of if statements maybe could or couldn't do. So pretty powerful once you understand what these little symbols mean. But anyways, yeah, if you have any questions, be sure to check us out at skillforge.com. And if you want to learn more, we got plenty of web development courses that you can take a look at and take, and hopefully come along for the ride with us, right? And learn this stuff. This stuff is amazing. So anyways, hope you have an awesome day, and we will talk to you later.